Finally tonight here, our Made in America is back, and so is a longtime summer tradition, hitting the open road.
Coachmen just dropped a bombshell, and the entire R-Vee industry felt it. Their CEO walked on stage, pointed to a brand new electric motorhome, and claimed it would destroy every competitor still running gas or diesel. And the moment that announcement hit, dealers started panicking, buyers froze, and rival manufacturers scrambled behind the scenes. But here's where it gets unbelievable. This wasn't just a flashy reveal. It triggered a chain reaction no one was prepared for. Rising prices, shaken investors, and early leaks that paint a very different picture than the hype. And here's the part nobody's talking about. If Coachmen pulls this off, it'll reshape your resale value, your travel costs, and your next R-Vee decision sooner than you think. The CEO's bold reveal. It started with a stage, a spotlight, and a promise that sounded almost impossible. Coachmen's chief executive stood beside a vehicle that looked like something out of tomorrow, the R-Vee, an all-electric Class B motorhome built on a GM Bright Drop chassis. He called it the first true clean power rig designed to outlast and outperform every gas and diesel unit still on the road. Cameras flashed, investors applauded, and trade headlines echoed the same word again and again: revolutionary. Yet behind that polished debut was a quieter story that most outlets ignored. This wasn't simply a new model. It was a total rewrite of how power, travel, and price would collide in the recreational market. The company had poured tens of millions into this single platform, betting that early adopters would carry the weight of its development cost. The opening figure set the tone: $150,000 starting price, before add-ons, before dealer markup, before destination fees. For a brand once known for affordability, that number was a shockwave. Analysts didn't ask when it would arrive. They asked how long the public would tolerate it. Because in this industry, innovation always comes with a bill. But numbers alone don't sell a revolution. The details hiding under the bodywork do. The spec sheet that turned heads on paper. The R-Vee reads like a technology showcase disguised as a road home. Its range is listed at 270 miles on a full charge, drawn from a 174 kilowatt chassis battery system. Supporting that are 1,000 amp-hour house batteries and 1,000 watts of solar assistance mounted across the roof. Every onboard system, from air conditioning to cooking, runs strictly on electric current. No propane, no generator, no fallback to fossil fuel. That alone makes it unique among current production models. But each number carries a price shadow. Replacing a full set of chassis batteries can exceed $40,000, and even partial degradation trims range sharply after a few years. Diesel rivals still refuel in minutes and cost half as much to service over a 5-year period. Coachmen insists the lifetime. Energy savings will offset maintenance, yet that math only works if power rates stay low and component prices fall. Both are rising. What began as an engineering triumph quickly became a financial question mark. The specifications look flawless in a brochure. They rarely stay that way once weather, distance, and weight join the test. Numbers this clean rarely survive first contact with real roads. And when those numbers meet the charging cable, the story gets even more expensive. If you want to stay ahead of the curve while the R-Vee world flips to electric, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Join the conversation below and tell us where you think this shift leaves traditional motorhomes. Charging time, waiting cost. Every electric vehicle lives or dies by how long it waits to move again. Coachmen claims the R-Vee can fast charge in roughly 2 hours on a commercial high-output station. That sounds efficient, until one realizes how few of those chargers exist near campgrounds or rural routes. At standard 50-amp service, what most parks offer, a complete charge can take 12 hours, drop to 30-amp hookups, and owners face 18 hours or more before reaching full capacity. The cost isn't only measured in electricity, it's measured in lost travel time and idle expenses. Campground fees don't pause while the rig charges, and drivers covering long distances will pay for overnight stays that used to be fuel stops for rental fleets. That downtime cuts rotation capacity, effectively raising per-mile cost by 15 to 20%. Add peak rate charging during summer travel, and the supposed savings vanish. This is where the difference between innovation and practicality becomes real. Efficiency on paper means little if the trip itself stalls. The R-Vee may run clean, but its schedule will not. Every minute plugged in is money parked still. And once those hours of charging end, owners face a new surprise hiding inside the body panels themselves. Lightweight materials, heavy price tag. Coachmen partnered with Genesis to build the R-Vee X using advanced composites and non-wood framing. Materials praised for strength, insulation, and reduced weight. Each panel is designed to resist moisture and warping, promising longer lifespan and quieter travel. The approach mirrors aerospace design more than R-Vee tradition. It also inflates production cost. Composites can run 4 times higher than plywood or aluminum per square foot, and repairs demand specialized adhesives instead of quick patchwork. While the finished coach is roughly 2 inches taller and 6 inches wider than comparable models, that comfort brings a penalty, a heavier retail tag, and limited body shop accessibility. Genesis materials cut noise and save a few £100 overall. But each pound saved adds hundreds of dollars to manufacturing overhead. Dealers quietly acknowledge margins are thinner than ever, meaning sticker prices must rise to keep profits intact. Weight reduction, once seen as efficiency, has become a balancing act between luxury perception and long-term affordability. The result is a coach that feels modern, yet costs like a small house in many regions. Weight savings may sell dreams, but margin loss sells fear. Inside the gamble. When Coachmen approved the R-Vee X project, it didn't just launch a new model, it tore up a financial playbook that had guided the company for decades. For years, profit stability came from proven gasoline and diesel lines, steady sales, and predictable margins. That changed when executives redirected funding away from their best-selling platforms to fuel the electric division. Roughly 1/3 of Coachmen's annual research and development budget was poured into the Bright Drop partnership. Several board members questioned whether the company could absorb that cost without trimming elsewhere. The answer came in the form of plant consolidations and delayed updates to existing models. Dealers noticed those gaps immediately, reporting fewer units available and longer delivery windows. Inside corporate headquarters, financial officers framed the risk as a long-term necessity, an investment in relevance rather than immediate gain. But betting on technology that hadn't yet proven profitable in the R-Vee space was no small decision. It meant sacrificing short-term safety for potential dominance later. Investors called it visionary. Skeptics called it reckless. Both were right. When the future becomes a budget line, someone's legacy goes on the chopping. And while executives justified the gamble, the engineers tasked with building it saw the cost from the inside. Engineers who questioned everything. In the design bay of Coachmen's Indiana facility, optimism collided with cold physics. Engineers faced impossible deadlines and untested hardware sourced from suppliers more familiar with delivery vans than motorhomes. The first prototype of the R-Vee X failed its charge cycle test after 28 minutes, triggering emergency shutdowns across the assembly floor. Replacements were ordered overnight, but the cost of shipping and retooling ballooned past $250,000 in a single week. Workers logged mandatory overtime through weekends to correct voltage imbalances, yet the problems kept returning. Even the composite body panels, hailed as the breakthrough, warped under heat stress during vibration trials. What looked sleek on stage had been rebuilt 6 times before reaching the show floor. The company quietly raised production estimates by 15% and extended vendor credit lines to cover the backlog. For engineers, this wasn't innovation, it was endurance. They warned management that battery cooling efficiency dropped when air circulation was restricted by underbody insulation, but removing that insulation meant redesigning half the chassis. Time ran out before every issue could be solved. Coachmen launched the prototype, knowing some variables remained unstable. The first thing to overheat wasn't the battery, it was the budget. As technical costs piled up, the ripple effect reached beyond the factory walls and into the sales offices of their biggest competitors. Competitors cut prices to survive. When news of Coachmen's electric breakthrough hit trade outlets, rival brands scrambled to regain footing. Thor Industries held an emergency product meeting within 48 hours of the reveal. Their electric prototype, still in concept phase, was suddenly outdated before production began. Winnebago, whose ERV2 program had been delayed due to supply chain issues, accelerated its timeline by 4 months, burning through contingency funds to stay visible in headlines. Yet the fastest response came from dealers on the ground. Within 2 weeks of the R-Vee X debut, multiple retailers quietly slashed diesel inventory prices by as much as 15%. Listings for popular units like the Thor Sequence and Winnebago Travato showed markdowns of up to $20,000, sometimes under invoice cost, just to clear space for upcoming electrics. It wasn't consumer demand driving the change, it was floor plan pressure. Dealers had borrowed against against inventory, and if electric hype made older stock look stale, lenders could tighten credit overnight. To prevent that, they discounted early and often. Analysts warned it could trigger a race to the bottom, where profit per vehicle collapses faster than costs can adjust. Price wars start quietly, then erase profit margins overnight. But even those slashed prices couldn't fix the larger issue looming over everyone: the physical cost of charging the future, the infrastructure, bill nobody counted. The R-Vee doesn't just need buyers, it needs places to breathe. Every electric vehicle relies on a charging network, and the R-Vee industry has none built for its scale. Most campgrounds still operate on 30-amp service, barely enough to run a small air conditioner, let alone recharge a 174-kilowatt battery pack. Upgrading a single site to support fast charging can cost roughly $42,000, covering trenching, transformer installation, and upgraded breakers. Multiply that across hundreds of destinations, and the cost becomes staggering. Some campground owners have begun passing those expenses directly to visitors through EV hookup fees, averaging $20 to $30 per night above standard rates. Even state parks are struggling to modernize. Grid capacity in rural areas often can't support heavy simultaneous draws. Private networks like Electrify America remain focused on passenger vehicles, not 24-foot motorhomes. Without accessible, high-output stations, owners face long idle times and unpredictable costs. Meanwhile, municipalities debate who pays for grid reinforcement, taxpayers or manufacturers. Everyone wants the benefits of green travel. No one wants to foot the electrical bill. Every new plug carries a silent surcharge, the road trip recalculated. For decades, a road trip in a Coachmen meant freedom measured in miles, not kilowatts. But with the R-Vee, that freedom comes with a calculator, a typical 1,000-mile journey that once cost roughly $280 in fuel now demands a different kind of budgeting. Charging at commercial stations averages 40 cents per kilowatt hour, meaning a full battery top-up costs around $70. With a real-world range of closer to 230 miles when fully loaded, the trip requires 4 complete charges, adding up to $280 in electricity alone. Add campground hookup fees, often $20 or $30 per night for electric service, and the total surpasses what drivers once spent at the pump. Then there is time. Each fast charge takes 2 hours, while a standard campground outlet demands 12 or more. Over a week-long drive, travelers lose nearly an entire day simply waiting to move again. What was once spontaneity now depends on charger maps and grid availability. For retirees and long-haul travelers alike, mobility is no longer endless, it is metered. Freedom now comes with a charging schedule. But the shift isn't only happening on the road, it's echoing deep inside the factories where these rigs are built, the factory floor shift. At Coachmen's main production hub in Indiana, the transformation from fuel to electric has rewritten the rhythm of daily work. Welding bays, once filled with engine mounts, now hum with technicians wiring battery modules and testing inverters. Retooling began 18 months before the R-Vee reveal, costing an estimated $8 million in new machinery and training programs. Many longtime workers who specialized in drivetrain assembly faced an impossible learning curve. Those unwilling or unable to transition into electrical diagnostics were offered severance. Every new electric unit built requires more time, more precision, and fewer hands. Robotics handle much of the cell installation process, trimming labor hours but eliminating entire job classifications. Supervisors now recruit software specialists instead of mechanics because digital systems control everything from energy routing to temperature management. The irony isn't lost on the workforce. Innovation that promised opportunity has thinned the payroll. Younger technicians entering the field command higher wages for computer skills, while older employees leave with decades of mechanical knowledge suddenly outdated. The hum of the plant sounds different now, quieter, colder, and automated. For every new hire in software, an engine builder clocks out. As factories reinvent themselves, the rules surrounding these vehicles are also changing, and not always in ways that help consumers. Before the next electric reveal changes everything again, subscribe now. Each week, we uncover the real numbers, the hidden costs, and the stories no manufacturer wants you to hear. Stay informed before your next decision hits the road. Regulation and red tape. Governments have raced to encourage electrification, But the regulations shaping it are tangled in contradictions. Federal and state incentives can knock as much as $7,500 off an electric vehicle purchase. Yet many RVs don't qualify because of their classification as temporary dwellings. That loophole leaves consumers paying full price while manufacturers still face environmental compliance costs. Zoning policies add another layer of confusion. Charging stations require permits that vary by county, sometimes taking months to approve. Environmental policy also shifts faster than production cycles. A tax credit approved one year can vanish the next, leaving manufacturers exposed mid-project. Coachmen's electric division relies on both domestic sourcing credits and battery recycling pledges to secure investor confidence. But if those programs stall, profit projections collapse. Meanwhile, municipalities are introducing road use fees to replace lost gasoline taxes, charging electric owners annual surcharges that negate much of their savings. Each new law claims to promote sustainability, yet together they form a maze of expense and delay in a market already stretched thin. Bureaucracy becomes its own bottleneck. The next bottleneck might not be supply, it might be permission. And while policies shift and factories adapt, a deeper question lingers. How sustainable is the green promise itself, the true cost of green? The R-Vee is marketed as the future of clean travel, but building that future leaves its own environmental bill. Each unit depends on lithium, cobalt, and nickel, mined in regions where extraction devastates local water supplies. Producing one set of 174 kilowatt chassis batteries emits roughly 8 tons of carbon before the coach even moves a mile. Even with solar panels, adding 1,000 watts of supplementary power, the carbon offset barely balances after 5 years of use. End-of-life disposal poses another challenge. Lithium batteries degrade after 8 to 10 years and must be recycled through specialized facilities that few states possess. The process costs thousands per unit and risks chemical leakage if handled improperly. Advocates point to renewable charging as a long-term fix, but most energy grids still depend on fossil fuels for baseline generation. For now, zero emission often means emissions relocated elsewhere. Coachmen's engineers acknowledge these trade-offs, yet marketing rarely does. Sustainability remains a calculation, not a certainty. The R-Vee may represent progress, but the planet still pays for the materials that power it. Clean energy still leaves a trail. You just pay for it later. Early numbers tell the story. 3 months after Coachmen unveiled the R-Vee, the data behind the headlines finally started to surface. The company reported just over 600 pre-orders during the launch quarter, a respectable figure for an experimental product, but far below the 2,000-unit projection circulated to investors before production began. Dealerships in Indiana, Texas, and Florida each received fewer than 10 display models, and several sat unsold through the fall showcase season. Online traffic to Coachmen's electric lineup spiked initially, then dropped by nearly 40% once pricing was revealed. The excitement of the announcement had outrun the math of affordability. Investors who once celebrated the reveal began asking harder questions about delivery timelines, warranty reserves, and projected returns. Early adopters posted mixed reviews: praise for quiet operation, frustration over range anxiety, and confusion about the cost of replacement batteries. Each R-Vee carries a 10-year battery warranty, but replacement outside coverage could exceed $30,000. Analysts warned that residual value may plummet once fleets begin rotating stock. The launch achieved visibility, but not volume. The electric dream had become a numbers game that was easy to promote and harder to sustain. The only figure that stays hidden is long-term battery replacement cost. And when those numbers began to ripple through the broader R-Vee economy, the correction came faster than anyone expected. The market correction begins. By the start of the following quarter, dealer lots across the Midwest told a new story. Rows of gasoline-powered Class B motorhomes, once considered reliable sellers, sat with price tags marked down 15% or more. The sudden attention on Coachmen's electric line created hesitation among traditional buyers, forcing dealers to discount older inventory to keep cash flow alive. In auctions across Indiana and Ohio, used 2023 units that once commanded $120,000 now closed below $95,000. Fleet owners offloaded inventory early, fearing depreciation as electrics rose. Manufacturers issued green transition credits, to hide losses. Coachmen's gamble forced rivals into defense, flooding supply and erasing margins. Buyers faced cheaper fuel rigs, pricier electrics, and uncertain resale values. In the end, every discount resets the industry's fantasy. But while the numbers sank, a new model of ownership quietly started rewriting how people approach travel altogether. Ownership versus subscription. For decades, R-Vee ownership was a badge of independence, proof that the open road belonged to those who bought it outright. But rising prices, shorter model lifespans, and maintenance complexity have driven many toward alternative access models. Leasing programs and fractional ownership clubs have expanded by 40% since 2022, allowing customers to use premium vehicles for a set number of weeks per year. The RVX, with its high initial cost, has become the ideal candidate for this new structure. Leasing the RVX costs about $2,400 monthly, including insurance and charging. It avoids depreciation and battery costs, turning ownership into subscription. Coachmen gains steady income, but drivers lose connection. Freedom becomes scheduled, and pride of ownership gives way to the convenience of flexibility. And while flexibility defines the present, the forces shaping the next decade of travel are already gathering speed just beyond the horizon. The next decade on wheels. The RVX may be the first major step, but it will not be the last. Over the next 10 years, electric travel will merge with digital automation in ways that change not only how vehicles move, but how journeys are planned. Coachmen's prototype already includes adaptive cruise, remote diagnostics, and cloud-linked battery monitoring. The next generation will likely integrate autonomous lane keeping and predictive routing based on terrain and charge density. High-output charging corridors are scheduled for construction along interstate routes by 2027, allowing RVs to recharge in under 1 hour. Homes will soon sync with motorhomes, sharing solar power and preheating interiors. Insurers will reward low-emission miles and penalize peak hour charging. Dealers fade as manufacturers sell direct. The shift isn't theory, it's already built. For companies, it's survival. For drivers, adaptation. The future of travel is charging outside your driveway, and that's the real story behind Coachmen's electric bombshell. The hype, the risks, the consequences, all heading straight toward every RV owner and future buyer. But now I want to hear from you. Do you think this electric revolution is the future or a disaster waiting to happen? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. If this breakdown opened your eyes, hit that like button, share it with a fellow RVer, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this industry shakeup.